I'll give you the history behind this place. Around 1886, the original building was the first vaulted strong rooms that was not owned by a bank, but that private individuals could store their valuables. So these vaulted rooms were rented by wealthy families, and when they would close up their London house and move to the country for the season, their servants or staff would bring all the valuables and store them in these vaults. So it wasn't just silver, it was everything that was of great value. So it might be paintings or other treasures. There were also safety deposit boxes. Your jewellery could be stored and all your valuables and your cash, etc. It was the first time that this was available to the public. Otherwise you had to go to a bank, and that was much more complicated. And it stayed like that. It stayed as a place for the wealthy to rent these rooms. And then between the First and Second World Wars, we had the late 20s, 1930s depression. And in the 20s, when the tax laws changed and the big estates were being taxed, many people had to sell their valuables. So fewer and fewer of these rooms were being rented by these wealthy people. A new breed of person was coming along here, and that was the dealers in second-hand silver and gold. So mostly silverware. But it was not open to the public. It was just used as storage rooms, and there were bare concrete walls, and floors. There was no nice shops and decorations of any kind. It was just bare. Many of the dealers might have a trestle table set up, and things were just in boxes lying all around the floors. Then, during the Second World War, the building was flattened. Then this place was redeveloped into what it is today. But during the Second World War, people like my grandparents, who were renting spaces down here, it was a safe place to store silver, a safe place from the bombing as well. And during the war, the only people who had any money who could be customers, and they were the American officers, mostly based in London. So Grandma and Grandpa rented a space here around the 1940. It became known as the Silver Vaults, I think in 1941. After the war, they brought their wives, and that's how it got started. And then over the years, we have people from all over the world coming to buy here because this was a central point where they could see the best selection. And many people around the world had an understanding that British silver, with its hallmarking, was something worth having. And in fact, when Japan became a powerhouse in the 60s and 70s, lots of Japanese people were coming here to buy back Japanese silver that we had, that we'd imported 100 years earlier. And so we were bringing all sorts of pieces back to Japan. And to this day, we have Japanese customers coming to visit the silver vaults. Some of the trade dealers who buy here have websites directed at only for Japanese people. We're certainly the largest group of shops for fine silver in the world, not just in London, but in the world. There's over 30 different shops here, all selling silver and some gold. In these shops, there is a vast selection of silverware that goes back more than 300 years. You'll see silver here from probably the 1690s onwards. And when people look at all of this silverware, you can see the change in period, the change in style over the centuries, which is really quite interesting. And the workmanship can never be repeated. People still commission pieces, but it's much harder now and much more expensive to create something new than to buy these old pieces. because the workmanship, the labour that goes into them, as well as the technology that was used then and the tooling, a lot of that's gone. We don't have that anymore. You polish it. Everything gets polished. People talk about silver tarnishing. It does, but one of the tips that we give people is keep your silver out of the kitchen. That's where you have the humidity. It picks up because of its reflective surface. It shows whatever's floating around in the atmosphere. So that's the worst place to keep it, you know. Generally speaking, people don't over-polish silver. It should only require cleaning, depends on the climate, but only 3 to 6 months is how often you might polish it. If you've got the right cleaning material, it's simple. But face it looks beautiful and it lasts forever. I mean, what else can you have in your home that looks as lovely as this, that you buy and then 50 years later you can sell it and it's worth something? Practically everything else we own isn't worth. It's the price of the metals doubled, not the price of the goods necessarily, but it has made some things much more expensive. So if you looked at, say, a solid silver tray, that's doubled in price in a year. Nothing's 100%. It's 92.5% pure. That's what we, the expression sterling silver. Have you heard this is okay. So we refer to this as the sterling standard. And this standard of silver that's guaranteed by the hallmarks on each piece of silver. First of all, it's the oldest quality control system in the world. It's been going for 600 years. Every piece of silver and every piece of gold is tested by the assay office in whichever city it was made. Oh yes, absolutely. So Sheffield, Birmingham, Edinburgh, Glasgow, all of these places have their own symbol. And each piece is tested, and as long as it's 92.5% or above, it gets the mark of sterling silver. If it's below that standard, certainly in the old days, the piece would be destroyed. Now, the laws governing the hallmarking of silver and gold are the same laws that govern the currency of the land. So in the old days, you didn't have notes. You certainly didn't have your iPhone to tap your credit card. You had coin. You dealt in gold coins or silver coins or copper coins. And if you made silverware or gold that was beneath that standard, it was like debasing the coin of the realm. It was like it was debasing your currency. If you couldn't trust the currency, your economy would collapse. And so various times in history, when people were trying to cheat, they would punish people. If you were lucky, they would put you in prison, but mostly they killed you. That is quality control. We don't do that anymore. So until I think about 1720, it was punishable by death. So that's why you can rely on those hallmarks. And so all the pieces will have those symbols on them. It means that people can trust. So if you look at this piece here, these are called date letters. Now, that symbol there is a leopard's head with a crown on it. That's the symbol for London. That means it was made in London. If it was made in Birmingham, it would be an anchor. Sheffield would be a crown. The next mark you see is the running line, the lion passel. That means 92.5% pure silver. Yeah. So that means sterling silver. There's a whole series, so that you're going to see all of these. And you'll see a row of marks, and it'll tell you who made it. Oh, that's the other thing. When it went to the assay office, they had to know who was putting it in there. So the maker would put their own symbol. They had a special registered symbol. We have ours, LSG. And it goes there and they test it and they go, okay, it's passed, we give it back to you. But then if it doesn't pass, they know who to punish. So the maker's mark goes on, you have the date letter, you know the town, and you know the quality. That's very simple, but exact. They look at the pieces that they want to buy, the things that they like, but they must obviously see the hallmarks. And important thing really about the pieces that they're going to buy, if they're old, is the condition. So if something's 100, 200, 300 years old, if it's been repaired, you want to know before you buy it if it's been repaired or not. The dealer that you buy from should be telling you if it's in good condition or not good, and showing you what it's supposed to be.
Birthday present?
Well, that's, I mean, actually, teapots are one of the most popular things we sell to Japanese and Chinese people. My wife and I went to Japan in last October, and it was fabulous. We had such a great time.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'd never met anybody who's come back and said they didn't have a good time. That's right, superb. We didn't see any silver pieces, very few pieces that we were able to discover. And yet Japan made some beautiful, fantastic pieces of silver. For example, the first little piece, you know how sweet that is.
Is this Japanese?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Handmade. So it's beautiful. Elegant little pot. And we have dealers down here who specialise in different things, and one dealer here specialises in Chinese silver but also has Japanese pieces. People can see not just British silver, but there's Russian, French, German, etc. But 90% of everything down here will be made in Britain. At the moment, the weight factor comes into it. A teapot that is lighter than that, maybe a different construction. So a teapot in that style will be a lighter weight and will cost less. It's not just the weight. That is playing a factor at the moment. So very heavy pieces, the price has gone up. Because you're paying for the age, the workmanship, and special maker, all of those part of the value. So when people are looking at normal times, if you want to call it that, those are the factors. So
What
that's
is
what
it?
tarnishes actually, it's the copper. The tarnishing, the silver doesn't really tarnish much, it's the copper that does it. It's an amalgam. They melt it together and the copper gives it the hardening. If it was more pure, so for example, certain ceremonial pieces are made in 950, 958, 95.8%, but they'll wear out more quickly. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years, but they will wear out sooner because they're softer. Best combination between malleability and durability is 92.5.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if you have, say, in Germany and some Scandinavian countries, they use 80% or 830%. The metal has a more grey colour, it's more brittle, it's harder to work, you can't get the fine, lovely forms. So that's why 92.5 is the perfect. Yeah, about 900, sometimes higher though. I should be saying that this word sterling, we actually don't know where the word comes from. We think that it comes from German silversmiths back in about 1250 or 1280, who came to Britain to show the monarch here how to combine this silver-copper combination. They taught us how to do it, and they came from the East. They were Easterlings. And we think that so the word's been bastardized to sterlings. We don't know. There's no guarantee that sterling came from that. But now, when you talk about the sterling standard, that is a worldwide term, of course, because it applies to our currency.
Do you mind showing us
Sure.
like
I
what?
can walk you
style
round.
is? Thank you.
So if we start, made by a man called Charles Frederick Candler in 1750. And this was a time when we'd had the Huguenots, the French Huguenots who had fled persecution. They came to Britain in the early 1700s and taught our silversmiths new techniques for making fabulous silver. So this is an example of the Rococo Baroque style that was in fashion in 1750. So from 1720 to about 1760, you'd see pieces like that. These candlesticks were of the same period. These are wonderful quality. And they're all silver. There's no filling in them at all. They're just solid silver. And this shows you the style of that period. Over here, very heavy cut. This one is 1786. This is what we call provincial silver. This came from Newcastle, and it's slightly out of period. This was 1780s, but it goes back a design to about 1720, 1730. But in Newcastle, the provinces, they were still doing the old style, if you like. The East Coast is much more delicate, and this is the beginning of the neoclassical period, where the architect Robert Adams was introducing the very elegant Greek forms. So the Grecian forms, he was making something much finer and more delicate. And this basket, you see, is a complete contrast here, 1795, to the massive piece that was made
It's different.
40, 50 years earlier.
It's simpler.
Oh yes, much more elegant lines.
Yeah.
This is the delicate little beading on there. And then it gave way to pieces like this here. So this is around 1800. These candelabra, 1795 to 1800. See, elegant, simple lines. Then things started to get more bold. Sort of 1810, that's by the Royal Silversmith. That's Philip Rundle. And then we can move on to, by the way, jumping around here, you see that elegant coffee pot at the top? Lovely, graceful lines. That one is going back to 1790. This one is going back to about 1710. You see this one on the left here? Very simple design.
Yeah, very simple.
Again, neoclassical, urn shapes. And then if we want to move on, now here you've got pieces. This is Victoriana. This is the British Empire was at its zenith, at its height, and people were very, very ostentatious. They wanted everything with lots of decoration. So we've gone back to fantastically ornate pieces. Look at this. Yeah.
Great.
And these examples here, look at the wine jugs at the back. See, those are
It's a little
very
bit
Victorian.
different color. Is at the back,
That's
it's a
got
bit
gold
with the
plating on it, on top of the silver.
Eighteen-
1850s and 1860s, so we've gone into the Victorian era.
Victorian.
And then
Small
moving
decoration.
over, we've moved away from that. By 1910, we've gone back to some very simple lines.
Looks like Victorian period
Yeah.
is more decoration.
Yeah. This is Victorian again.
Victorian. Wow.
We had an insatiable
Beautiful.
appetite. And then over here we've got These are beginning of the 20th century.
Oh,
But you're going back to this very massive look that was first popular around 1800. 100 years later, they revive that look. So there's always this progression. And then here again, very Victorian, it's all very Victorian looking. Now you can see, this is a French one, again English by the Royal Silversmiths. These are French, fabulous quality.
French.
Feel the weight of this one. That's cast silver. Really fine. Huh? And then over here, again Victorian. Yeah. You can see this elaborate look.
Yeah.
And then we've now moved over to the Art Nouveau period. Yes. So we've gone away from Victorian, and now you've got this naturalistic appearance. That's the Art Nouveau. And here, this is American silver. You have little copper on top of the silver. But again, it's the 1910, about that sort of period. But this is Japanese. So this one, beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
This is a cigarette
I can
case.
tell the design.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a very fine piece.
1920.
Very stylish thing. Lovely quality. So this is again around the beginning of the 20th century. These are hand-raised pieces. And then here you've moved to Art Deco, to 1930s. You see this?
Yeah.
T-sat, the toast rack, that's a toast rack. Yeah. These candlesticks are arts and crafts period. This is 1910. And this is an industrial look. The rivets, do you see like rivets? Decoration. And that's was the fashion of the time. And then here, this is like the Empire State Building. Look at this one, yeah. Candlestick, Art Deco, 1930s.
That's for whiskey. Oh, from the mouth.
Yeah. And then you often see cows that do the same thing, but they're not for whiskey, they're for milk. So this piece, yeah.
Wow.
And if you look at this, it's fantastic. Everything is
Very
accurate.
detailed.
Oh, superb work. Superb.
Oh. I wonder how long it takes to do.
Hundreds of hours, really. This one here, the young lady's name is Louise Sorel, and this is a prize-winning
So
piece. So it's a special piece. Are you familiar with the Galbraith, the writer, J.K. Rowling? You know the Harry Potter. Well, she also does a detective, Galbraith, which is popular, and she visited the vaults for a few times, and a murder has just taken place in her book. The murderers, part of the story takes place in the Silver Vault. The features in the latest book is that model ship.
Oh, that one.
Yes, one of these. She features this. If you look at her videos, she's talking about her books. She's got that in the background.
Wow.
Because in the book, someone is murdered because of one of these.
Wow.